We are live. Hi. We are live with Rich Nuts here on Fun in the Kitchen live. Rich, so I met Rich at an event for entrepreneurs a couple years ago. He was this handsome firefighter in a kilt walking around asking people to sample his nuts. I'm just saying, it was quite an entrance. And lo and behold, they were delicious and nutritious, and we stayed in touch all these years, and I was so excited to finally get them in the store. These things are amazing. They're so crunchy, which is what I really love about them, and I love that they're guilt-free. You know, I can sit here and eat them to my heart's content to a certain degree, and they are guilt-free. You very rarely find that in nuts, and especially when they've got a little crunch, it usually means they have sugar. And these guys don't have any sugar. They're totally healthy. They're sprouted. So I want to ask Rich, how does a firefighter end up the sprouted nut god that you are with a product and a kilt?
Oh,
I think we get
great questions. Well, let's see. I'll start with how I came up with the Richness product. So basically, when I was working as a firefighter and paramedic, I did 20 years. That was my career. And I worked the last 12 years in Malibu. And during that time, we would go on a lot of brush fires. And what I realized very quickly is that on a brush fire, there's no healthy food. The only options you really have are prison sack lunches, MREs, and sometimes you would get like fast food. So those were your options usually. So I started bringing my own trail mix with me, and I would just carry it in my pocket because I knew that nuts were packed with fats and proteins. So I thought that would give me the energy I needed. But when I would eat, I used to love raw cashews. So I would eat lots of raw cashews and trail mixes that were roasted. And I would start to feel bloated, gassy, and kind of brain fog. And it's not exactly the situation you want to be in when you're on the side of a mountain with the fire burning. So I did some research online, and I found out about sprouting or soaking or activating. Those terms are kind of interchangeable, but it's really about starting the germination process. And so I started doing that with nuts at home and trying them, and voila, my symptoms eliminated. I got more energy. I didn't have that slug feeling. So I found that it worked really well. I started experimenting with it. I added some flavors. The original flavor was savory sage and rosemary. And you know, they were a big hit. Everyone loved them. So I was sharing them with all the guys at work, all my friends and family. Probably for 6 months or a year, I just had a big jar of nuts, and I would just, hey, you want to try the best nuts ever? And I was giving them to people. And pretty quickly, I realized that, wow, this is sustainable, because I was doing about 100 pounds of cashews, organic cashews a month. And I was like, this costs me like $700. You guys are going to have to start paying me. And everyone was like, okay, how much do you want? And so that's how Rich Nuts started. And just kept rolling from there. I started working on different recipes. We came up with the crunchy curry flavor, which I see you have there in front of you. That was the second flavor. And then the maple pecan, which is a crowd favorite. And right now we have 6 flavors available. And yeah, that's where we're going. And the really amazing thing, and this is what people are always blown away by, is like something changes with the texture after you sprout them, and dehydrate them. It makes them lighter and crunchier, and even the nuts that are normally known as kind of bitter, like say walnut or Brazil nut, they become less bitter, and that's because you're removing the lectins. I could talk more about the phytic acid and the lectins and all that too, if you're interested in that.
I totally am. I gotta say, I love these guys. Just eating them like I am right now, just out of the bag. But they're amazing on salads. I really love the maple pecan is fantastic, especially right now with the strawberries in season. Throw that on with some arugula and some strawberries. Yeah. Fantastic. And the curry, oh my gosh. You throw that on top of like a vegetarian curry for a little crunch on top. It's so good. It's a really, really unique flavor. I love it. And it's also obviously great on salads too. I like that one with a little like mandarin orange and going a little bit exotic from that way, but it's so good.
Yeah.
We love these guys. So you talked a little bit about the sprouting makes it more digestible. Talk to us a little bit about how it's more nutritious, more digestible. What is that magic of sprouting?
Yeah, so essentially nuts and seeds evolved over time to survive our digestive tract. So the survival strategy of the plants is to have animals eat them and then drop them out the backside undigested. So they want the nuts and seeds specifically to survive the digestion and grow into a new plant. So what they do is they concentrate certain substances, phytic acid and lectins are the main ones, in the nuts and seeds themselves, so that they can, and those substances basically block, inhibit, and disrupt our digestion, allowing that nut or seed to pass through us. And phytic acid will actually leach minerals from your body. And so basically when you sprout them, so the nuts and seeds are normally, when they're in their raw form, they're in a kind of like a defensive mode. And when you sprout them, you soak them in water, that's their signal, hey, okay, it's time to grow. We're done, we're in the right spot, it's time to grow. So you soak them in water overnight, then we allow them to germinate for a period of time, and that's when they go into that growth phase where they become more digestible and therefore more nutritious. The only problem with them then, and I have a bucket here of sprouted cashews that I've been working on that I'm gonna make some nut milk with in a little bit. But basically, after they're sprouted, they're super moist, obviously. And so you either have to refrigerate them immediately, eat them, or you can make nut milk with them. Or what I like to do is dehydrate them, because that locks in the flavor if you season them. It also brings back the crunch, which I love. And it preserves them naturally so that you can put them in a bag and then come back and eat them in 3 months, 6 months, whatever. So that's kind of the magic of the process we use. We sprout, we season, then we dehydrate.
Oh, nice. I like it. Well, so in your quest to make us all more healthy with nuts, I know you've got a really great workshop for us to make some cashew milk, and I've got little cashew milk here. I discovered it's not just for breakfast anymore. I've added a little rum and a little cardamom bitters because it is happy hour. So yeah. I'll sit here and sip on my cocktail while you tell us all how to make a delicious, healthy, sprouted nut milk.
Yeah. So I have 2 ways to share with you. Well, there's lots of ways to do it. I like to call it sprouted nut nog, nectar of the gods. And basically, you start with raw nuts, and then you soak them overnight. These ones, you can soak them anywhere. It depends on the nut, but cashews, you can soak like up to 8 hours. If you go more than that, they lose their flavor. There's a point where you don't want to soak them any longer. Cashews are basically 2 to 8 hours. I like to do between 4 and 8 hours. Macadamia, they're also about 4 hours. Pecans, 4 to 6 hours. Walnuts, 4 to 6 hours. Almonds, 8 to 12 hours. So you got your nuts, and then you want to add fat, flavor, sweet, and salt. So these ones I've been soaking, I'm just going to drain the water from them and then throw them into the blender here. It'll be my first ingredient. So let me drain the water out.
So, Rich, how much do you rinse after you drain the water? Do you do a lot of rinsing, or do you not rinse them too much?
I don't rinse them too much. I'll drain the water out, and then that's it. There's nothing in here but clean water. It's been sitting overnight. A little bit of, like, sometimes you'll see just pieces from the nuts, like the shells and stuff come off. So I don't necessarily rinse them again. If you go too long, you go somewhere between 8 and 10 hours, the cashew specifically will goop out like this. It's almost like a glue consistency. It's all sticky. If that happens, you might as well throw it away because all the flavor is completely gone. And so if you go, it's somewhere in the 8 to 10 hour window when that will happen. So 4 to 8 hours is a little bit better. So I put basically 1 cup of nuts in here, and then I do 4 cups of water. It's that simple. We can even do more water if we want, either way. Then I'll do basically, and all these things you can play with to season to your taste. I'm going to do like 1, 2, 3, 4 dashes of salt. I like to use this sea salt, Redmond sea salt, because it's from Utah. I also think that fat is critical. So I like to use coconut oil, and I'll use a teaspoon for this amount. So you just do a teaspoon, drop it in there. Now, I like to sweeten them with either stevia. Dates are really good, about 3 dates per recipe. I mean, 2 to 4, depending on what you like, how sweet you like it. Stevia is also very good for sweetening if you don't want to use any sugar. Honey is a great alternative, and maple syrup. Now, I'm going to use a teaspoon of maple syrup this time because I really like maple syrup.
I used date syrup for mine.
Date what?
Date syrup for mine.
That's another good option. That's a really good option. So then it's that simple. You pop it in the dehydrator. You pop it in the blender, turn it on, you let it run for a couple minutes, and then all you have to do and you can also buy this at the store, but it's really easy to make yourself. And I like to share this recipe with a sprouted nutmeg because this is something that most people have at home, a blender. That's the only piece of equipment you need. And then you strain it. You don't have to strain it, but I prefer to strain it because you get out all the little tiny pieces of nut. So you have a little bit more of a creamy. Actually, I made a little mistake here. Normally what I do is I taste it first to see if it needs any type of additional salt or sweetener, but we'll see what this tastes like. And if we need to add anything, we can do it after we strain it. So you just strain it down. Just make sure. Sometimes I'll add some of these other ingredients like cinnamon or vanilla or even cacao. Cacao will make it a little bit more interesting, but there's all kinds of different ways to do it, and you can totally play with it.
Well, cacao is an interesting idea. I like a little cinnamon. It makes it a little horchata-like.
Yeah, exactly. And then you just put this in your fridge, and you can have it in there for 2 to 4 days. And as long as you keep it cool, it's not a problem. It doesn't go bad. It may separate a little bit. If it does, I like to put it like in a mason jar. I'm going to give it a taste. It's pretty good. I think it could be a little sweeter. So that's a simple fix. I just pour it back in.
Or you could just add some rum, which helps that too.
I don't have any rum with me, unfortunately. I'm more of a mezcal person, so.
There's a mezcal recipe online I was toying with trying, which has cashew milk, a little pineapple, some mezcal, and a little coconut. I bet it would be really good.
It sounds like a pina colada.
It's like a pina colada. Yeah.
Let's see what happens here. We'll whip it up. A little bit creamier. I can also show you a shortcut to this too. We'll do that next. Because I figured out a way to make it without even soaking your own nuts. You can use our maple pecans, which are already soaked.
And already a little sweet.
And already a little sweet. You just add salt and a little bit of fat. You can use also MCT oil if you're into that. That works really well. It's good for your brain. Coconut oil. I don't really recommend adding butter or anything to it.
Wait, what is MCT oil?
It's a type of oil or fats it's called medium chain triglycerides. They come from coconut. And it's just super healthy fats that are good for your brain, good for your heart, keep everything functioning well. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bulletproof movement and Dave Asprey and all those guys.
No, haven't done that one.
They're big on 2 things: butter in your coffee, and also MCT, medium chain triglycerides.
Yes, I've heard a lot of the grass-fed butter and the collagen and all that in your coffee.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's see how this is. That's much better. And maple syrup, it's kind of a game changer.
Mm.
I wish I had some of your rum to add to it.
Mezcal's not a bad call either, I got to tell you. Mezcal is not a bad call either. Not at all.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, so these beautiful packages, the artwork is so amazing. Tell me about the inspiration on that. Because I feel like there's a story there or something.
Yeah. So
Here we are.
part of the thing for me, I worked as a firefighter and I retired, unfortunately, on some injuries. And I have a pension, you know, so I can go live somewhere like Bali or Thailand and just have a really nice life and never have to work again, right? So I'm engaging in this business because I believe that the children of this generation and future generations deserve a better earth, a greener earth, and a more just earth. And so we emphasize the farmers on our packaging, the ones you have there, because my passion really is supporting regenerative agriculture. I found this white paper in 2015 that basically, in the paper, it talks about how regenerative agriculture works in harmony with nature. So basically you create soil that is alive. It has mycorrhizal fungi and also beneficial bacteria. And so what happens is the plants, they exude into the earth like carbohydrates or sugars to feed the mycorrhizal fungi and to feed the microbes. And the microbes, in exchange for that sugar, what they do is they bring minerals, they bring nutrients to the plant so the plant can be more robust. What ends up happening in this relationship is the food that comes out of that plant is 30% more nutritious. And at the same time, that plant will sequester 3 to 7 times the carbon per square acre. So compared to conventional agriculture, the regenerative model sequesters 3 to 7 times more carbon per square acre. And the paper found that if the entire world converted to a regenerative agricultural system within 5 years, without any reductions in our carbon emissions, we could sequester enough carbon to avert the climate crisis that we're entering into. And for people that have, you know, known about global warming or a climate issue for years, like that was the first positive news that I heard. Everything else was like, if we don't cut emissions, we're all going to die, you know? And I kept hearing that for years. And this was the first thing that I heard that was really positive. So, you know, when this idea came to me about having a sprouted nut company, and then our goal is to become regenerative. Right now, a couple of our ingredients are regenerative, but not all of them. But the main thing with those images of the farmers from all different regions of the world was that we wanted to bring people's awareness and attention to the farmers because, yeah, they're so important to us, and most of us don't even think about it. So I like to bring like a mindful practice when I eat. I say a prayer over my food, not really to any certain specific religion or God, but just giving general thanks. My perception is more that nature is really God, and that we've kind of lost our connection with it. So I feel like my mission is to bring the message of, you know, reconnecting with nature, and that nature has the answers for us to solve the real problems we're facing.
Yeah, well, we believe very strongly in that, and that's part of why we started Foodocracy, is really to help with local sustainable food systems, not our big agra systems, because we think that that's really where the key is. Yeah, I actually, people I can hook you up with that have a nonprofit just for soil health and regenerative agriculture. So I remember I'll have to hook you up with that. It's a really amazing thing. I grew up in farm country in Ohio, and to hear people talking about soil health is just, you know, warms my heart. I think it's so important. It's listen, everything we eat comes from it. And it's everything for our planet. So
yeah,
soil health and the ocean health, it's everything.
Yeah, and the conventional system that we're using now, you know, is fossil fuel dependent, and pesticides go in, and then also they till the earth all the time. So that breaks up the mycorrhizal fungi. It exposes the bacteria to the sunshine, and then they all die off. So it's just dirt. So you have to keep putting nutrients in all the time, artificial nutrients, instead of just letting it do its natural process. So it makes a huge difference. And the food, I mean, it just tastes better, and it's better for you, and it sequesters more carbon. It's like it's a no-brainer once you get your mind around it.
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, that is fabulous, and we love that you guys are working on that. That's an amazing thing, and we love your nuts, Rich. They're delicious.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really fascinating to me too, because I wasn't really looking for a business or trying to start something. It just kind of fell in my lap, and I just kept trusting and going with it. And what never ceases to amaze me is that when people try it, they're like, wow, these are amazing. Like, continue to get that response. And that's what continues to push me forward. Because like, for me, this has been a real growth edge as a firefighter and a paramedic. Like, I could tell you everything you needed to, more than you needed to know about a chainsaw, a rotary saw, and an axe, and all kinds of different drugs that we would use to revive people and stuff. And I didn't even know what a spreadsheet was. So now to become a CEO and a founder of a food business, it's been quite a challenge for me to up level and to shift and to grow and to transform. So it really keeps me driving forward that there's more to this than just making a profit. Of course, if we don't make a profit, then we're no longer a business. We're no longer sustainable. We're just a really expensive hobby. So we do have to make a profit, but we also right center, about making that impact, that positive impact, because you're having an impact one way or the other. But is it good for the planet? Is it bad for the planet? Is it good for the people that work with you? Is it good for the people that grow your food and ingredients? It's probably not a good idea for people that work on farms to be subjected to all those pesticides and artificial ingredients and stuff. So we're really passionate about making a positive impact on the world and the people we deal with, and even our customers, of course, and the food that they eat.
I have to say, sourcing clean nuts is not easy, because there's a lot of, especially particularly in cashews, there's it's a difficult nut to harvest, and there are a lot of places that aren't doing it well and aren't doing right for the people and the local community. And so to have you really conscious of that and consciously sourcing the best, cleanest, most sustainable, most earth and ethically sourced nuts is really nice, because it's not easy to find.
Yeah, definitely. And it's been a challenge for us too. We did make some macadamias for a while, and that was our biggest challenge, was trying to continue to get a supply that didn't have a lot of rancid nuts in them. So
wow.
It has been challenging for us, but like our cashew supplier now is, they come from a country called Benin, which is a very small country in West Africa. And the people that we're working with, they're great. They put in wells for the community. They developed a process where they don't have to basically open them with their hands anymore, because part of the problem with the cashew industry was basically cashews have this membrane around them that has kind of like an oil on it that's very similar to poison oak. So the people that would pick it would just get exposed, or not pick it, but actually process it. They would get continuously exposed, and they would just have like scarred up hands that looked like they were burned or something. But these guys developed a new process to get it off without, like, mechanically, so that people don't have to do it by hand anymore.
That's really good. I know that's one of the big concerns with cashews is that the processing can be seen almost cruel, to the workers, and the workers really have no other choice for work, because they have to sustain their families. So
Exactly.
it was like just not an ethical source. So it's just wonderful that you guys have chosen to really be conscious of all of your sourcing, of all of your ingredients. I think that's one of the best things. Besides the fact that they're delicious. I love it.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a quick question about the sprouting. So when you sprout for these guys, when you make them, so you're doing the soaking, and then after you soak, you're then draining the water and then letting them sprout a little bit. Are they getting green? Do they get like a little like they actually sprout a little like green tail? You know, like when my potatoes do or something.
We don't usually carry it along that long because it takes longer. Cashews actually start to sprout during our process, and they have this little. It's kind of like the first part of the tail coming out. It's really tiny, but what happens is that little piece doesn't stay on because once we get them, then we mix them with the ingredients, and those little things get knocked off. So it's not like you have the actual sprout coming out. You can carry it on, but it takes even longer. It's really about activating the chemical process that makes them more digestible.
Right. Could you sprout them in that way? So if I were to soak my nuts and then leave them out, would they sprout for me before I made my nut milk, or would that be yucky?
I haven't tried to go that far with it, but theoretically you could. I don't know if it's going to change the flavor. We did go kind of far with sprouts with the cashews, but you have to make sure you get raw ones. And sometimes the ones at the store that are sold as raw are not necessarily raw. They may have been irradiated or something else, or steam pasteurized. It kind of depends. And then also what I would recommend, because I did try some experiments with this, is doing it in a dark place, because the light will kind of throw off the process. Yeah, underground.
So if I make sprouted nut milk with yours, if I can manage to not just eat them all, never managing to do that, would I soak these first or not?
Nope, they've already been soaked. So the activation has already occurred. The chemical change has already occurred. You just put them in with water. So the recipe is basically 4 ounces of the maple pecans with 3 cups of water, 1 teaspoon of coconut oil, and then about 2 dashes of salt. That part is really up to you. I give you permission to use that amount of salt that feels right to you, which is varies from person to person. But it's very simple. You just throw it in with water. You don't have to let them sit. You just put it in right away.
Oh my gosh, I gotta say, I'm kind of loving the idea of these guys. And dare I say, just because it's happy hour with a little bourbon, I'm this little maple pecan nut milk with a little bourbon. Doesn't that sound good?
Bourbon goes well with maple, that's for sure. and vanilla. So
and vanilla, yeah. This is a winner. I love it. I love both of them. We love all of your flavors, and we're hoping to sell out on these. Oops, there we go. We're hoping to sell out on these so we get more of your flavors in the store because we love them so much. I'm going to toss out, if anybody has any questions, post them in the comments now, because we're going to wrap it up so we can get on and have our cocktails.
Happy hour.
It's happy hour. So if anybody's got comments, send them out now. But this has been so much fun, and I'm so glad to have Rich Nuts in the store. I'm so glad to have you here on Fun in the Kitchen Live. And thank you so much. Now I have my summer drink, which will be healthy and cool and delicious by the pool all summer long.
It kind of looks like a B-52 or something.
It kind of is a little B-52 like, or like I'm allergic to coffee, because otherwise I would do just Kahlua with it, because Kahlua and cashew milk would be also delicious, just your basic Kahlua and coffee kind of thing. But I'm allergic to coffee, so I can't have Kahlua. So it's a wacky allergy, I know. And but I am going to experiment bourbon, rum, a little mezcal, see what we can do this summer. But I'm loving it. What I also love about it, the nut milk, is they're lighter than dairy milk.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't weigh you down. Like if I were to have milk or cream in this, it would just, it's so heavy. I like the nut milks are just a little bit lighter. So I think they're almost better in a cocktail, dare I say.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a vegan version too. Plant-based.
Yeah, it totally. And we're all about that. So it's really fantastic. Well, since I don't see any comments, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, Rich. And we hope to catch up with you again soon and hear all the great stuff going on over at Rich Nuts.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Cheers.